Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on the Dungeon Dive, we are going to talk about the next game in the Dungeon Dive Masterclass series, and that is, of course, Quest for the Lost Pixel. The Masterclass series is just kind of it's like a Dungeon Dive Hall of Fame. These are games that I hold to the highest esteem. These are the games that I absolutely love, the games that I kind of just constantly think about, the games that I think kind of set the standard, the bellwether for the kinds of games that I enjoy. So it should be stated straight out of the gate that the designer of Quest for the Lost Pixel, Peter Jake, has over the years become a friend of mine. He was not a friend of mine when I originally bought the game and the first couple expansions, and when I originally fell in love with the game. But over the years, we have become at least acquaintances. We don't live too far from each other, and we have played a game together. We played a game of his game, Cozy Farm, together. So just know that going in. I'm not trying to help him boost sales or anything. He barely makes any money off of this game to begin with. So in this video, I'm going to first address a couple of concerns. Then I'm going to talk very generally about why I am including Quest for the Lost Pixel in the Masterclass series. And then we will go down to the table and take a look at everything in detail. So the first is a couple of criticisms. And of course, the first thing that anybody ever talks about when they talk about this game is the price. And you just can't mention Quest for the Lost Pixel without having to talk about this, unfortunately. So let's get it out of the way. Yes, the game is expensive. It's only available from a print-on-demand service called the Game Crafter. It has well over 1,000 cards. I think maybe when you include the expansions, probably over 1,500 cards. And when you order the game, every single one of those cards is printed especially for your game. There is no economy of scale involved in the Game Crafter unless they do one of their crowd sales. It is especially expensive for overseas customers because the Game Crafter is US based and they do not have any kind of worldwide distribution. That is a very unfortunate fact. However, I have seen people group together. A large group on the Dungeon Dive Facebook group in Europe did this, and they bought a whole bunch of copies so they could save money on shipping. They could group together, and that made me really happy to see people come together to do that. However, when you look at other card games, the prices aren't actually that outrageous for Quest for the Lost Pixel. If you're into Fantasy Flight's living card games, and you buy enough stuff, you buy enough sets and expansions to have the same amount of cards, options, and stuff that is found in Quest for the Lost Pixel, you will end up paying a pretty similar price. In the last Kickstarter for Hero Realms, if you went all in and got all of the cards, the price was about the same as you would end up paying for Quest for the Lost Pixel. The main thing here is that initial buy-in of the base game. And yes, it's expensive. There is evidence of me online when I first found out about this game complaining about the price. It was like sticker shock. I had never seen just a card game be this much money. However, in researching the game, I got over the price and I was able to buy it and I fell in love with the game. And I am so happy that I did, because while it is expensive, this is one of my most played games. There are other games that I have paid probably more money for that I have played less than Quest for the Lost Pixel. So on an hour, $1 per hour on time investment, on having fun, I've gotten my money's worth from Quest from the Lost Pixel and much, much more. Another common complaint is that the game can be too easy. And I think with the base rules in the core game, this can be true. The rules have been updated drastically to drastically cut back on the number of artifacts that you get and artifacts that you can equip. And this was one of the main things that made the base game too easy. However, while the game can be easy, it can also be really damn hard. And a lot of this depends on the luck of the seed and your dice rolling. This is a roguelike dungeon crawl. When you shuffle your cards, you are setting up your seed, and sometimes that seed will be in your favor and sometimes it just won't. Sometimes you will roll those dice and you will have great luck, and sometimes you won't. So the game, I think you could say, rather than it being too easy, can be too swingy. But now there are multiple ways to up the difficulty for those who want more of a challenge. You can play with the village module, or you can play in nightmare mode. And like I said earlier, the number of artifacts that you can equip and find has been lowered drastically to make the game a little bit more challenging. Okay, so now let's get on to the good stuff. And boy, howdy, is there a lot of it. So why is Quest for the Lost Pixel now included in the Dungeon Dive Masterclass series? In many ways, Quest for the Lost Pixel is the quintessential dungeon dive game, and I'm just going to list all of the ways here. It has a lot of cards, and I love cards. Cards are my favorite board game component. It has pressure luck elements, and I love pressure luck elements. It has random dungeons that are always different. It has a ton of loot. It has a ton of unique monsters to fight. It has things to do other than combat. It has a ton of random events. It has things to do outside of the dungeon. It has mini games like fishing. It has a ton of cool characters with unique abilities. It has pets. It has dungeons within dungeons. It's not complex. It is not a campaign game. It's a zero to hero, one and done game. It can be set up and taken down pretty quickly, especially given the huge number of things in the game. And while the core loop of each game is relatively the same from game to game, each game feels different because of all the random elements. Okay, now we're going to go down to the table. I will give a brief overview of how the game is played, and then we will discuss each piece of the pixel puzzle that, when combined, create this masterwork. Okay, now let's do a brief overview of the gameplay. I will demonstrate just how simple the game is, and then we will go into detail into each of the things that come with the base game and the expansions, and how those things work together to create such a wonderful experience. So right now I am at level 2. I'm on dungeon level 2. The main thrust of the game, the main drive of the game, is you are working your way from level 1 down to level 10 of a dungeon. And once you reach level 10 of the dungeon, you want to find the lost pixel, and then you want to find the portal to escape from the dungeon, and that is how you win. The main way the game is played is co-op. 1 to 4 heroes can play together to try to find and rescue the lost pixel, or you can play competitively, where only one hero wins. And I have played both ways, and I have enjoyed both ways. The way I enjoy the game mostly is by playing solo. So let's take a look at this hero right now, and you will kind of have an idea of the kind of all of the things that go into creating a hero every time you play the game. So right now I am playing as the Artificer, a male human. I have 17 hit points. I have my various stats here, and these basically correspond to what kind of attacks and defense and speed you have. I have a strength as a D4, my dexterity is a D6, intelligence is a D6, I have 0 defense and a speed of 4. My special ability was, at the beginning of the game, I started with a random artifact, and I can equip up to 2 artifacts. Most heroes can only equip 1 artifact, and the artifacts are very powerful items. The Artificer can level up to a special advanced class, and he hits the advanced class at level 4. Every single hero has an advanced class, and when you hit that particular level, you get to choose a new power. So the Artificer can become an inventor, and as an inventor, at the start of each floor, you can craft. Crafting is a special action that you can take where you can trade in 2 items for a more powerful item. Or I can be a potions forger. Whenever I have 2 potions, you may look at both, leave one revealed, then discard the other. So that just lets you know more about the potions that you are going to drink and use in the game. My starting artifact was this Eye of the Watcher. It is an amulet and an accessory, and a hero can normally equip 2 accessories. Normally, you can only equip 1 artifact though, but like I said, the Artificer can equip 2 artifacts. The Eye of the Watcher is actually an elemental item, and it adds to my attack. I can do an ice attack and a wind attack, and it also adds some defense against ice and electricity. So this is a really handy item because elemental attacks are very powerful in this game. I also have right now a hat, so you can equip one item on your head. You can have one weapon. You can equip boots and armor and 2 accessories. So I have a bard's hat. This hat gives me a +1 to my dex. So anytime that I roll a d6 to take a dex test or to do a dex attack, I get to add +1. And this also helps me evade. So you can evade monsters if you come across a monster that is really powerful. You have to roll under your speed, and right now my speed is 4, but this will give me a -1 to my roll so I can evade easier. I also have equipped some earth gloves, and earth gloves can be used to boost strength, dexterity, or intelligence attacks. So in order to use the stats of the weapons, it has to match the roll that you choose to do when you attack. So because this can be used for everything, it's very easy to use on the Artificer, so I can use it as a dex. And then when I use that, then I can also add a 1d4 earth elemental attack, and I can defend against 3 earth damage coming back to me. I'm level 2, so I have 2 spells. Spells are powerful. You can use each one of your spells once per dungeon floor. And they also help you keep track of what level you are, because each time you level up, you gain 1 spell. So right now I have 2 spells because I'm level 2. I have a summoning spell. I can summon a divine pet, and this allows me to avoid all physical damage from a monster's attack until the end of the encounter phase. I also have a fireball spell, and once per floor, I can use my intelligence to add a d8 towards a monster, d8 worth of damage. You also have a number of gems. You begin the game with 3 gems, and each time you go down 1 floor in the dungeon, you will also gain 1 gem. And the gems are super powerful one-use items. So I have an amethyst, a sapphire, and an emerald. And the amethyst allows me to gain +4 defense from 1 elemental attack. The sapphire will give me a +4 defense from a physical attack. And the emerald will allow me to gain your elemental attack +3 for 1 attack against any monster during the encounter phase. So that's really nice to get those +3 elemental attacks there. I also have a pet. There are a number of pets you can get in the game. And right now I have my animal gopher. His name is Digger. He gives me +1 to my dexterity. So with that hat, my dexterity rolls are always at a +2. I can discard him to gain a treasure from the treasure deck. So that is his one-use ability. My deity that I am worshiping is Mobogo, the god of food. So my hero may never use any food items. If they do, abandon your deity and gain 5 damage. However, in the time deck, whenever my god comes up, I get to heal 3 damage because my god helps me. And that usually will come up about once per floor level. And I have 1 side quest left to complete. At the beginning of the game, you will have 3 side quests, and that is to defeat any boss monster. And if I do, I gain 2 random treasure cards in addition to other rewards that I might gain from defeating that boss. So each turn, you will have a number of phases. You will have a time phase, and then an action where you are taking movement, and then an encounter phase. Right now, I am here on this tile, and I would do my time phase. When you construct your deck of dungeon cards, you will construct it with a certain number of cards. We'll go into more detail on that as we uncover each of the kind of different types of dungeon cards. You will construct a time deck depending on how many players are playing. And the time deck, that is one of the main ways to lose the game. If it ever runs out on a floor and you haven't yet found the exit, then you lose the game. So at the beginning of each turn, you will flip over a time card. You will see if it is your god. If it is your god, you will trigger your god's power. This is not my god. So now I take my movement. I have a speed of 4. I can move 4 spaces. So I will move 1, 2. I'm at the edge of a tile. So let's draw a new tile here. And you always enter on the blue arrow. And the question mark is an event. So I would go 1, 2, 3. I would draw an event card. We'll take a look at the event cards later. Depending on if I solve the event or not, then I would continue my movement of 4. Now you have your encounter phase. And in the encounter phase, you always draw a monster of the level you are on. Right now, I am on level 2. So I would draw a level 2 monster. And here is a monster enhancer. Monster enhancers enhance the monster. They make the monsters more powerful. They add random abilities to the monster. So when you draw a monster enhancer, you draw a new card, and then you apply that enhancer to that monster. Sometimes you will draw another monster enhancer, and that you will then apply 2 special abilities to the monsters. So you can make each monster very, very powerful. Now I enter into combat. Combat is relatively simple. You will pick a stat to roll. So I will pick my dexterity because I have the most bonuses in dexterity. I roll a d6 and I add 2. 1 for my hat and 1 for my pet. 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. This goblin has a physical defense of 1. So 7 minus 1 is 6. I do 6 points of damage to the goblin, taking him down to 4 health points. However, I also have a number of elemental attacks. I have a D6 ice attack, a D6 wind attack, and a D4 earth attack. So I could now apply any of those attacks and then continue to do damage. The monsters might have their own elemental attacks. They also might have their own elemental defense. But because of this first strike, the monster gets to attack before I get to attack. So the monster would actually do 1d4 against me. So I would take 2. I don't have any defense. That's one of the main drawbacks of the Artificer, and I haven't found any armor yet. So I would just take 2 hit points. I've already taken 6 points of damage, so I would take an additional 2 hit points of damage. If I defeat the monster, I get a certain number of XP, and because it was enhanced, I also get to draw a treasure. If you defeat one of the more powerful enemies, then you may gain 2 XP. When you defeat a boss, you get to draw an artifact. And you basically keep doing that from turn to turn, trying to find the exit and eventually trying to find the lost pixel. Okay, so Quest for the Lost Pixel includes a base rulebook in the base game, and then each of the expansions has a small pamphlet that also has additional rules. And the expansions include the Catacombs of Etheria, Risk and Reward, Hack/Loot, which also comes with a mini expansion, Sunken Treasure. And then we have the final expansion, and that is Deities of Time, which also comes with a mini expansion called Game Over. So altogether, there is the base game, and there are 4 expansions. And because there are rules on each of these that augment and add to and change the rules of the base game, there are a lot of different places for these rules to exist. However, somebody on Board Game Geek has created a compendium of the rules. They've combined all the rules together into one single document, and I highly recommend this document here. It's really easy to find. It's in the files section on Board Game Geek. And I'm actually going to use this document here as a roadmap for the rest of this video to make sure I talk about all of the various things. And for the rest of this video, we will just be discussing each individual element that goes in to creating Quest for the Lost Pixel. Okay, the first element we will take a look at are the heroes, and there are a lot of them. And as I talk about this game, I will be talking about it by including everything that there is for the game. So once you start adding all of your expansions, you will have just a massive amount of heroes to play. You have the assassin, the druid, the alchemist, the mystic, the thief, the chanter, construct, blood mage, fighter, summoner, timebender, bard, adventurer, beast tamer, a duelist, a barbarian, a psionic, a rogue, a wizard, a huntress, a paladin, a valkyrie, brawler, spellblade, necromancer, and 2 assassins. One of these was replaced. I can't remember which one. So one of the assassin cards actually replaces the other, and I can't remember which one is which. So I have 2 assassin cards. Now, each one of these heroes will have a number of stats, and those stats dictate what you roll when you make an attack, or what your defense is, or what your speed is, and each one will have a unique ability. Some are definitely better and more powerful than others, so some of them might be a little bit of a more easy mode. Some of them might be a little weaker than others, so it might be a more difficult mode when you play. When you choose your character, you could choose your favorite. You could decide to go in for a challenge and choose one of the weaker characters. You could make it a little easier and choose one of the more powerful characters, or you could draw 3 and then choose one from that hand. How you do that is entirely up to you. Each one of those heroes also comes with a little standee that you can use. And as you guys know, I absolutely love standees and I like all of these. They're very nice. I like the pixel art and I like the colors on them. Very handy to have. Now, in one of the expansions, introduced advanced classes. And each of the classes here, each of the heroes will have a new advanced class that they can work towards. And at certain levels, you will get to choose a new power to add to augment your character in addition to their innate abilities. So the Valkyrie, for instance, let's find the Valkyrie. I think Valkyrie was in the back here. So the Valkyrie, the Valkyrie's innate ability is at the start of each turn, remove 1 damage token. Man, that's great. So that is constant healing. And then when the Valkyrie reaches level 5, you can choose to become the Angel of War or the Angel of Light. So the Angel of War, if you choose that, says during the encounter phase, choose 1 elemental defense the monster has and negate it when attacking. This continues until the end of the encounter phase. And then Angel of Light says, while Angel of Light is in the Catacombs, you may skip any 1 Catacombs card until she is out of the Catacombs. We will talk about the Catacombs in a little bit. The Catacombs is a dungeon within the dungeon. So this adds a really cool choice to make because when you hit that level up, you have to choose what new power to take. I think a lot of the powers are really interesting. A lot of the character classes have powers that I want both of, and so it's always a good choice. It's always a hard choice to make when you level up with these advanced classes. So at the beginning of the game, and every time you level up, you will have the opportunity to gain more spell cards. And spells you can use them once per floor, and you keep track of your levels by how many spells you have, because you can always have 1 spell per level. And there are a ton of different spells and they are very powerful. And knowing when to use them is one of the kind of main choices there is to make during the game. You don't want to use it too early, but you don't want to forget to use it and end up taking extra damage, more damage than you needed to take because maybe you could have used that spell to defeat the monster or get past the trap or what have you. So we have things like Might and Rock Blast, Firebrand, Decay, Repel, Elements, Imbue, Freeze, Heal, Third Hand, Firebolt, Swift, Thunder, Lightning, Crafting, Mind Control, Ice Spear, Assist, Twister, Invisibility, Focus, Rage, Marked, Fire Barrier, Upgrade, Stone Scan, Reveal, Nature's Vigor, Detect Trap, Venomous Bite, Bolt of Drain, Revive, Corrode, Confuse, Rift Trait, Divinity, Phase, Flight, Sacrifice, Sword Dance, Arcane Magic, Teleport, Icy Sight, Detect Monster, Haste, Discovery, Fear, Diamond Skin, and Detect Potion. So some of the spells are direct damage spells. Some allow you to traverse the dungeon in certain ways. Some of them will add defense. Some will allow you to control monsters. Some will allow you to manipulate your inventory. Some will augment your defense. There are all kinds of different spells, from attack spells, utility spells, defense spells, and spells that affect movement. So every kind of magic you could possibly imagine is in this deck of spells. And it's always fun getting a new spell, and it's always a really strong choice to have to make of when to use each of your spells. Okay, at the beginning of the game, you will start with 3 gems, and each time you go down to a new floor, you will draw 1 gem, and there are also opportunities to gain gems throughout the game. Gems are powerful one-use items that you can use to augment your attacks and your defense, and there are a number of different gems. When the game first came out, the only thing different was the color of the gem and the name of the gem. And Peter, he went back and he made a new gem deck that added different shapes in order to help people who are colorblind. And I always applaud that kind of accessibility. So in the gem deck, we have things like rubies, dark crystals, sapphires, topazes, and all kinds of different gems, prismatic shards. And each one of these will do a different thing. And you can use and this is again another choice to make: when to use the gem, when to hold on to them. You have a limited number of spots in your inventory, and your gems do take up inventory spots, but they can be very powerful, and using them at the right opportune moment is a crucial decision to make. The prismatic shard, this may be used at any time as an XP, so this will count as an XP that you can use to level up. Remove 3 damage tokens from your hero. You may play this to immediately defeat any monster and then discard this card. So as you can see, some are very powerful, some are definitely more powerful than others. So getting these gems can be the difference between life and death. Okay, so when you start the game, you will also start with 3 side quests. So this game actually has side quests in addition to the main quest of locating the lost pixel. You will have 3 side quests. There's actually also an opportunity to pick up an additional side quest or additional side quests while you are playing. Each one of these side quests is kind of like just gives you a little thing to do that you usually gain an artifact, a treasure, or some XP. For instance, you might need to do some exploration. Place 1 quest token on this card for each time your hero defeats an event. When there are 5 tokens on this card, gain the reward. You will gain 2 random treasures. Or maybe you're a trophy hunter. Place a quest token on this card for every elite monster your hero defeats. Once there are 3 quest tokens on this card, gain 2 XP. You can do a wanted side quest. Defeat the dungeon boss on the 10th floor. Win the game. So that actually introduces an additional way to win the game. Dark defeat. Successfully make it through the catacombs. Gain 2 XP. So there are all kinds of little side quests, and these are kind of like little mini games that just add some variety to each game that you play. So as I said at the beginning of this game overview, when you are going into the dungeon, you are working your way from levels 1 to level 10. And you will be constructing your dungeon floor at the beginning of each floor in a certain way. So you will always have your stair down. This is your entrance tile. You will always have your exit tile, and that is where you are going down to the next floor. And this is the main goal of each floor, is to find this before the time runs out. If you are playing with the Catacombs expansion, you will always have your Catacombs entrance to find that dungeon within the dungeon. And then you will also make up your regular dungeon deck with a number of different dungeon tiles depending on how many players, depending on if you're playing 1, 2, 3, or 4 heroes. And on your dungeon decks or on your dungeon tiles, you will have different things like treasure, potion, crafting stations. You might have water spaces in which you can stop and do a little fishing mini game. Lava slows you down and you take damage. You have void spots that will actually, if you move through them, will make you discard more time. There are also other things that there are dead ends. There are acid spaces. The question marks are where you have your random non-combat and encounters. You have these rainbow spaces, which we will talk about later. And we have these special cheat chests that we will talk about later. We have artifact chests that we will also talk about later. You can go shopping, in which case you will have a better chance of drawing some new items. So there are all kinds of different tiles and all kinds of different things to interact with while you are playing the game. And each time you play the game, each dungeon floor is completely different, so you never really know what to expect. So the last expansion introduced the Deity module. And at the beginning of the game, if you are using this module, you will draw a deity at random, and that will be the deity that your hero worships. We have Yijin, Yolotl, Ion, Venera, Sistos, Gyaris, Nyata, Scyther, Area, Testis, Zedia, Kotar, Argos, Ayla, Dothar, Epix, Chrysion, and Kaidos, and Phenos. Each one of the gods, when you draw the corresponding god card in the time deck, will heal you for 3. So it is a persistent way to kind of constantly heal each floor. Very handy. However, each god also has a limitation. So your hero may never equip ring items. If they do, abandon your deity and gain 5 damage. There is a way that we'll talk about later that you can switch deities during the game. Sometimes your hero might never equip any boots. If they do, abandon your quest and gain 5 damage. Your hero may never use spells. Wow, that would be super hard mode. During their exploration phase. If they do, abandon your deity and gain 5 damage. So you could look through the deity deck at the beginning of the game and choose a deity that might kind of tailor the game to be maybe a little easier or a little harder, or just add a little spice that you want to experience while you are playing that game. Okay, now let's talk about one of our favorite things in all of these kinds of games, and that is loot and treasure. There is so much loot and treasure in this game. As you work your way through levels 1 through 10, each level has its own unique loot deck. And there are also additional loot decks that we will take a look at in just a moment. But I wanted to show you kind of how they progress and the kinds of different things that you can find on each floor, or with a sampling of floors. We'll look at floor 1, 3, 8, and 10 as an example here. So you can find other runes, and these are like more powerful gems you can add to your inventory. You can find unidentified items. We will talk more about these in a moment. This is an entire subdeck of loot that you can spend XP, or you can do a thing in town at the blacksmith to identify this loot and draw a random piece of loot from the unidentified item deck. There are boots, fire rings, sonic gloves. These are legendary weapons, so these ones that have a rainbow name are legendary weapons. This is super powerful, 2d8 elemental attack. That is great there. There is a food item, some bread, more unidentified items. There are weapons and armor, gloves, hats, accessories, animal skin, longbows, so all kinds of cool things. And now, as you can see, as you start moving up or down through the various floors, the items will get actually more powerful, have more unique things to do. The Tormentor, some meat there, a rogue's hood, a twin blade axe, a mystic robe will add all that elemental defense. So you get 1 point of defense against every kind of element. That is super cool there. An elven spear, jungle boots, star wands, lunar robes, morning stars, a deck of cards. Now let's look at treasure for the 8th floor here. We have a buckler, more unidentified items, very powerful defense item there, the ringmail, the falchion, a light rune, a pickaxe, a rusted ring, karma amulet, a leviathan staff, a striker, kind of an electric, it looks like an electric whip or something, a legendary whip, a battle mage cap, the god hide armor, the temple of crowns. Oh, very cool. And then once you reach that final level, you can look for things such as the jackal cage, or the vampire fang, the gauntlets of war, a voodoo doll, a jewel shield, an electric ruin, a trick bow, a blue dragon armor, the book of the dead, a special kind of wand, electric bracers, the green dragon armor, the ring of Trinity, the bloodlust mauler, a power orb, and the dragon's bane. So if you like loot, this game has you covered. Okay, at certain points while you are exploring the dungeon, you might come across shops and crafting stations. Shops allow you to buy items from that floor's treasure deck. So if you were on floor 2 and you visited the shop, you would take your treasure deck for floor 2, you would draw 3 items, and then you can purchase any of those for the gold value at the top. Now, this game doesn't actually have gold. How gold is represented is any items in your hand, in your inventory, or that you are equipped with are worth 1 gold. So it's basically a way to trade maybe some unwanted items for some more powerful items that you might want to purchase. Another way to get rid of unwanted items besides just discarding them or selling them would be to visit a crafting station. When you visit a crafting station, you can trade 2 of your unwanted items for a new random item from the treasure deck on the floor that you are on. While you are exploring the dungeon, you might also come across these purple chests, and these are cheat chests. And these are powerful cheat codes that you can unlock by playing a little mini game. When you land on one of those, you want to take your cheat chest deck. And each one has a certain code that you have to get in order to unlock that. And the way you do that is you play a little Yahtzee style mini game. You take your red D6, your blue D6, and your green D6, and you have a certain number of attempts to roll each one of these numbers. When you roll it, you can lock that, and then you can continue to roll just like you would in Yahtzee, trying to get this code. Once you unlock this code, then you can draw one of these. You can draw that item. And these items are kind of like artifacts. They're kind of like spells. You can only have 1 cheat code activated at a time. And they are very, very powerful. And they usually break the game. They break a rule in some way. You can have things like quad forces, cheat use, explore phase. So during the explore phase, you get to Utilize this cheat. Restrictions, once per floor. An ability, you roll a d6, you might gain a treasure, gain a set treasure. Set treasures are more powerful treasures, and these will be discussed a little bit later. But when you put together a set, then you get even more bonuses. You can gain an artifact, or maybe nothing happens. This is a super, super great card. A monster ball there. During the encounter phase. So when you are fighting, you can use this cheat here, and this is once per floor. When a monster is defeated, you may place that monster under this card. During a future encounter, you may discard the monster from under this card to gain a plus 1d6 to your attack. We have the final magic there, a leap of faith, a secret room that you can discover, maybe some enchanted loot, a Mancer chance, a final form, a fatality, or maybe some spring rings, a platform. You can solve a puzzle there. Bird hunt, a network hack. You can have a different password. You can discover a powerful password, extra credits to continue, a portal. I love all of the little kind of video game Easter eggs in this, the little just the little callbacks, the little inside jokes for people. Yeah, so very cool deck of cards. I love this cheat deck. I like the little pressure luck mini game. Any game that incorporates pressure luck already has kind of one up for me. Okay, at certain points while you are exploring the dungeon, you might come across some water and you might say, hey, I'm going to take a little break from exploring the dungeon and do some fishing. And if you end your turn on water, then you can go fishing and participate in a little simple fishing mini game. And you have this blue bag here that represents the water. And inside the bag are a whole bunch of different tokens. Sometimes you might just have water. So you reach in the bag. If you pull out just a water token, you have caught nothing. But there are also fish that you can find. There are red fish, green fish, and these bigger fish, and they are represented in these smaller bluer fish. So we have small fish, we have medium fish, large fish, and trophy fish. And depending on what you draw, then you will draw a random card from each of the fish decks. So let's take a look at one from each. So the small fish here, maybe you have found the Undyne. It's a transformed pet. So what these fish do is you feed the fish to your pet. Let's now take a look at the pets. So at the beginning of the game, you will draw one pet, and each of the pets will usually give you a bonus to a stat, and you will usually be able to discard your pet for one powerful ability. You might have a cosmic crab that gives you a +1 intelligence, or you may reuse a spell card with a once per floor restriction. If you do, discard the card. Maybe you have Binks the cat, which also gives you a +1 intelligence, or you can reveal 2 dungeon tiles anywhere within the dungeon. If you do, discard the card. So as you can see, they are mostly similar, but each one will boost a different stat and give you a special ability. However, when you go fishing, if you catch a fish, you can then feed your fish to your pet, and it transforms them, giving them an additional boost, and that boost lasts for one entire floor. At the beginning of the next floor, you will discard that boost, and then if you want to get a new boost, you will have to do some more fishing. So let's take a look at a medium fish here. The medium fish, maybe your pet will become a phase beast and get an even higher boost there. Or we might find a large fish. All right, let's take a look at a sample large fish here. The Omni Avatar, you will get a speed boost. Speed boosts are super, super valuable in this game because they allow you to traverse more spaces in the dungeon and save time. And now let's take a look at one of the trophy fish. The purple Aeon. All right, so you might get a +5 speed boost. That is super cool. One other thing that you might pull up from fishing is a blue chest, and this is sunken treasure. When you find sunken treasure, you will consult your sunken treasure deck. This is a whole subdeck of powerful items that you might find. Things like this Gale Force axe or fairy mail, a Lost Warrior's helm, a water bag, a trident, some golden seaweed, or a wave amulet. So a whole new deck of treasure tokens or treasure cards that you might be able to find. I think it would be cool, and maybe it was possibly a missed opportunity to have something really bad, like maybe one powerful kind of water monster, an evil mermaid, a zombie mermaid or merman or something that you could draw from here, adding a little bit of a press your luck element to the fishing minigame. Okay, as you explore the dungeon, sometimes you might come across these question marks, and those are random events. And once you start adding in all the expansions, you have a pretty large stack of random events, and there are a lot of really cool things that happen. So when you land on one of those or when you pass through it, you will randomly draw one of the events. And you might have things like dark vision. And when you draw an event, you will have a certain stat check that you need to do. And whether you pass or fail it, then you will get to trigger the effect. You might find a shop and you may be able to go shopping again. Maybe you find a green vortex or a shrinking room. There are traps. There's an oblivion void, a tragic wizard. So there are NPCs now. And the NPCs will usually have you discard something or do something in order to gain their favor, in order to gain their effect. Maybe you have a blocked path, a loud noise, a spike pit, a shrine of cards. Oh, an ambush there. Twisted halls, a save point, a traveler. You might find a potion, an empty fountain, a dwarf miner, a dart trap, a spike ball, a lost boy. I like this lost boy. He says, discard any one food item from your inventory. If you do, gain one treasure and continue your turn. If you don't, continue your turn. Just remember what you did. You didn't help that little lost boy. Maybe you find a throne room and that gains you 1 XP right away. A greater life pool, a slime pool. You might find a cheat, a shrine of Ori, a grinding. This is a little dice game that you can play in order to gain more experience. A spider web, the Hall of Heroes, a broken bridge, or a forgotten hero. And Hall of Heroes, hey, that is actually the name of the game that I am currently working on. I'm currently designing Hall of Heroes. Okay, on each floor of the dungeon, you will have an opportunity to locate the Catacombs. And the Catacombs is a dungeon within a dungeon. And this is my favorite expansion. And I love this. This is from the Catacombs of Etheria. I love the Catacombs expansion in Dungeon Quest, and I think this is even a lot better. So when you enter the Catacombs, when you find the Catacombs entrance, you go deeper into that level of the dungeon. And you take 10 of these energy tokens, and you use these energy tokens to press your luck to continue through the Catacombs. You draw a Catacombs card, and it costs a certain number of energy to encounter that card. You get to do what it says, you get the reward, and you set the reward aside. You can choose to leave the Catacombs, taking those rewards with you, or you can press your luck and continue on, hoping you have enough energy to encounter the next card. If you ever can't pay the energy cost, you get expelled from the Catacombs and you lose everything. So you want to continue on. And there are all kinds of very powerful cards to encounter in the Catacombs. There are powerful monsters and powerful rewards. You might have the Death Memory, the Poison Fog. You can get a set item, an Inferno Mine, a Flesh Room, a Haunted Hall, the Crypt Guardian, an Empty Room, an Energy Portal, a Bloody Room, a Prison, and all kinds of different things. And they will range in cost from 1 energy to 2 energy. I think the most is 3 energy. There might be one that is 4 energy. So you might have this legendary orb. So it's kind of like blackjack. You want to get as close as you can to spending all of your energy to explore the Catacombs without busting, without going over. I love this expansion. One of my favorite things to do in this game is to encounter the Catacombs and just go deeper and see what I can find and what kind of rewards I can get while pressing my luck. Okay, now let's talk about monsters. So, like Treasure, there is a monster deck for each level. So there are 10 monster decks. Actually, there are 11 because there is also a deck called the Wandering Monsters. The Wandering Monster deck consists of very weak enemies and very strong enemies. You never know exactly what you're going to uncover when you have to draw from the Wandering Monster deck. So depending on which level dungeon you are in, you will draw from that level's monsters. And as we said before, we have these enhancers, and there are a whole bunch of different kinds of enhancers that you can discover. Some of them are more powerful than others. We have things like a gender raid. So if your hero is a male trait, the monster gains 1d6 attack. If your hero has the female trait, the monster gains +2 defense. And as I said, you can actually draw more than one of these enhancers in a row, thus creating a very, very powerful monster. However, if you ever draw a sheep, then everything is discarded. So if you were to draw the gender raid, then the ambush, then the life force, and you're thinking, oh my God, this next creature is going to be so powerful, and you actually drew the sheep, then everything gets discarded and you don't have to face off against a very powerful enemy, but you also don't get the rewards or the XP. But you will have things, so this is a level 2 here, you will have like a prison hound, a rust monster, a crawler, an overseer. So these are elite monsters. If they have an orange name, they are elite monsters, and they will reward you with more XP. And there are also these red lettered monsters, and these are bosses, and these will give you 3 XP, and you will also gain an artifact. Take a look at the artifacts in just a bit. The level 4 monsters here, again, life boost, first strike, a beholder, a deep elf captain, an ambush. There is a water nix. Some of the pixel art is really, really quite nice. A Naga fighter, another deep elf there, a deep elf rogue. So there is some theming in each level. It looks like level 3 has a lot of deep elves. So you have entered the realm of the deep elf there, and then also the Nagas. And here we have the Mother Naga, which is the boss of level 3. You don't have to face the boss in order to progress, but it does, if you seek out the boss, it will give you more rewards. And here we have the level 9 monsters. The monsters get very, very powerful, so you really do need to make sure to keep leveling up, and you need to make sure to keep fighting monsters in order to get more XP and keep up on your treasure. But again, a lot of that is luck, so you might have some games that just don't work out. You just can't seem to find the treasure that you need in order to progress, but that is kind of the nature of a roguelike game, and I think this is the best example of a tabletop roguelike game. Some of the enhancers will be wandering monsters, and if that happens, then you draw the wandering monster. You can, on level 1, facing a wandering monster can be a total devastating event because you never know what you are going to draw. You might draw something with 17 health or 14 health, maybe you might draw a simple cave mold. So these are monsters from every level that are wandering the dungeon, and you just never know what you are going to expect from a wandering monster. Again, this is kind of a pressure luck element. So these can just kind of add a monkey wrench to your carefully executed plan, thus rendering you unable to progress, or maybe you have to escape, or maybe you want to chance it and try to kill off one of these super powerful enemies. Okay, now let's talk about artifacts. So you might get really lucky and discover a red treasure chest while you are exploring the dungeon, or you might have the ability to kill one of the bosses on each floor. And if you do, you get to draw one of these very powerful artifacts. These are the most powerful items in the game, and these really can make the difference between having an easy game and a hard game. In the base game, with the base rules, there were many more opportunities to draw artifacts, and you could equip any number of them up to your equipment totals. The rules have been changed because that made things way too easy. So now artifacts are a little harder to get, and you can only equip one at a time. You can keep multiple artifacts in your inventory to equip at certain times, but you can only ever have one equipped. And these are super awesome weapons. I love whenever you get to draw an artifact, it is always an exciting moment. You have things like divine whips, hellfire crossbows, a rune wand, a seventh sin axe, the Orin, the Pharaoh's armor, the crystal armor, the gem saber, the status ring, grass armor, eye of the watcher, the arch magi robe, the codex ring, the golden sword, the sky piercer, the ender blade. Yeah, I mean, these things are just awesome. It's always a fun time to draw artifacts. And it's one of the things that I always look forward to whenever I play a game of Quest for the Lost Pixel. Okay, another one of the expansions adds another dungeon within a dungeon, and this is a risk and reward. These dungeons are very hard to get through because of the time element. I find that I almost never have enough time exploring the dungeon to use these. So I rarely use this module, this expansion, because I usually don't find that the reward pays off for the risk. But again, if you want to make the game a little harder, you can include randomly one of these entrances into this sub-dungeon in your dungeon deck when you create it. And when you find it, you might find like the Hall of Fire or the Poisonous Swamp or the Ice Chamber, and you have to work your way through these 3 different floors in order to get to the set chest. And when you find a set chest, then you get to draw a treasure from the set chest deck. And these are very, very powerful items that are part of a set. And if you can complete the set, then you get additional bonuses. So you have things like an Aftermath, a Treetop Cloak, a Spellforce Amulet, Faraway Helmet, Glass Armor, a Forgotten Crown, Scholar's Robes, and a Shade Oak Bow. I have never actually completed a set before, and usually when I go into one of these dungeons, I usually end up dying because I don't have enough time to get out and actually find the exit for the floor that I am on. Okay, but that is not the only dungeon within this dungeon. Sometimes while you're exploring the dungeon, you might find this Rainbow Rift. And if you enter this Rainbow Rift, you will wipe off all of the dungeon tiles on the floor and go into a brand new dungeon floor. And that is the Rainbow Rift floor. The Rainbow Rift is a very fun and crazy dungeon that you can explore. And you will have to go through these new cards with this super cute, overly charming rainbow motif. And then each encounter you have will be drawn from this Rainbow Rift encounter. And these include things like a town portal, a jelly gel, a thorn bush, magic crystals, a sandy snail, a lily, a dark elf boy, pooks, a hummingbird, an orb of time, a set item, a tiny tuft, a baby piggy, and all kinds of cute but very deadly and dangerous critters and encounters. I believe now that this is the final dungeon within a dungeon. So Quest for the Lost Pixel actually includes 3 dungeons within the dungeon, thus making it probably have the most dungeons within a dungeon of any game that I know of. While you are exploring the dungeon, you might also find potions, and potions are powerful elixirs that you can drink, but again, there is a pressure luck element because you never know what is going to happen until you decide to drink the potion. When you gain a potion, you draw it face down. When you decide to drink it, you turn it over and do what it says. The intelligence potion. Gain +2 intelligence this turn, then discard this card. So there are a number of different potions: growth, luck, potion of liquid feet, potion of buffness, a goblin potion, a health potion, a venom potion, a white shadow potion, dragon's breath, a potion of sand, toxic, and a mana potion, and so on. So again, drawing a potion is always fun. There is an element of pressing your luck, and I love that. And so it just makes this kind of fun. It makes this little element almost like a little potion mini game where you never quite know what to expect. And it's always a little bit of a stressful situation or a suspenseful situation to take that potion card, turn it over, and see what happens. And finally, this brings us to the village. This brings us to the hero's home. This was an expansion, a module that was added in the last expansion, and this adds a little mini game, a little thing to do in between each dungeon. It also adds a scoring system, so if you want to compete against yourself to see what kind of high score you can get, you can use this module. This module does make things a little more difficult. So you always start your village with your hero's home. Using this module, the only way you can level up is in between dungeons. If you're not using this module, you can level up anytime you gain 5 XP. But with this module, you have to leave the dungeon in between floors, visit your home, spend 5 XP to level up. There are also a number of buildings that you can spend XP to unlock to make your village better. You can buy a stronghold, a shrine, a great hall, the mage tower, the hall of life, the dark temple, the tavern, the mine, the church, the fishing port, the castle, and the blacksmith. So this gives you other things to spend your XP on. When you spend XP to unlock one of these buildings, you will turn it over to its unlocked, its color side. And then the next time or that time when you are in the village, you have 2 actions, and each building allows you to spend 1 action to take advantage of its ability. So the stronghold, you can go here just to gain a point of XP. You can unlock the shrine, and as an action, you may draw a new deity card. So this is where you can change gods to worship. The Great Hall, as an action, you may draw a side quest card. So this is where you can get more XP or more side quests. The Dark Temple, you can gain 5 damage to draw an artifact. Or maybe you can go to the Hall of Life. If your hero dies, you may discard this card, place it back in the box, and remove 10 damage tokens from your hero. This gives you an opportunity to continue to resurrect, basically. And a Mage Tower. As an action, you can spend 1 XP to draw a new spell. This replaces one of your current spell cards. Also, each one of these buildings that you unlock will have a certain point value: 4, 6, 6, 5, 3. One of the buildings here is the castle, and this just gives you an additional point at the end of the game. So you want to, if you're going for a score attack mode, you want to make sure to get that castle so you can get those 8 bonus points at the end of the game. And then at the end of your game, once you have discovered that lost pixel and escaped, you can tally up the victory points from all of the buildings you have unlocked to see what your score is. Okay, there is one additional thing that I forgot to talk about. When you find one of those unidentified items in the treasure deck for each floor, you can spend a certain number of XP to draw one of the corresponding cards from the unidentified items deck. And these will include usually more powerful items that you can use, such as weapons, shields, and armor. This is just a completely different sub-deck of items that you can draw from. Hey, an explorer's hat, some emerald boots, gilded plate mail, robe of the fish, the blood rain, a Rambo, the rainbow amulet. But you might also find some rotten meat. So again, it is a little bit of a press your luck element, because you never quite know what you will find in that unidentified item. You could find something really great, or you could find some rotten meat, which is worthless food. So, if variety is the spice of life, then Quest for the Lost Pixel must be one of the spiciest games I know of. If you really value randomness, if you value variety, if you value having a unique experience every time you play a game, if you value simplicity over complexity, if you put a lot of value in just having fun with a easy experience, if you value the ability to mix and match different modules, different expansions, if you like a simple dungeon crawl where you are just moving from one floor to the next, having random events, fighting random monsters, getting random treasure, if you like press your luck, if you like dungeons within dungeons, if you like loot, if you like pets, if you like spells and different gods and building up a town in between your quests, if you like side quests, if you like heroes with unique abilities, and you like different kinds of armor and different kinds of cheat codes and different kinds of things to discover while you are playing a dungeon crawl adventure game, I think it would be really hard to beat Quest for the Lost Pixel. It kind of is this holy grail game that just offers me almost everything I look for. The only thing that I think would be missing in a game like this is maybe an overland adventure mode that you can travel from one dungeon to the next. That could be an entire new game system. Maybe somebody should make that. Quest for the Lost Pixel, the overland game, where you get to have a map and you have encounters moving from one dungeon to another. Maybe that would take this game to a whole new level. But as it is right now, Quest for the Lost Pixel is nearly a perfect game for me and for some viewers of the Dungeon Dive. For some people, this game will not appeal to them. Some people may not like the art. Some people may be turned off by the simplicity or the repetitive nature, the somewhat grindy nature, or the video game, the arcadey nature of Quest for the Lost Pixel. But if you do value those things, I think this is a really hard game to beat. And even though it is very expensive, I think you will get a lot of value out of it because of the kind of game it is, because of the random nature and how you can set it up quickly and have a completely different experience each time. I think that is what makes this game so special and what makes this game one of my most played games and a game that I will continue to play for many, many years. If something happened to my copy of Quest for the Lost Pixel, if I lost it, it is a game that I would immediately buy a new one because I would feel that my collection, my life as a game player would be somewhat incomplete without this game. This game is very special. It is a quintessential Dungeon Dive game and experience, and I love it. And all of this stuff, and for all of those reasons, is why Quest for the Lost Pixel is the newest game into the Dungeon Dive Masterclass series. So, all right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this very long, exhaustive, and detailed video. For those of you who watched to the end, thank you. For those of you who only watched the first 5 minutes, which is most of you, well, hey, thank you for watching those first 5 minutes, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.